So you have the team. Okay, what are the modalities that I think are helpful for seniors? Oh, you know, TTouch. Probably pretty helpful in my view because it involves body work, wraps, and movement. Massage, especially manual lymphatic drainage, which is a technique we learned in the rehab part of massage school, which is very subtle, very, very light work, but it moves the lymph system and is very good for pain and very good for boosting the immune system. So I actually love doing manual lymphatic drainage, and oftentimes during a session I'll do, depending on the dog, I might spend some time doing manual lymphatic drainage as well. Conditioning exercises, you know, I think that's important. Acupuncture can be great for pain. When you're doing these multiple modalities, I will say that it's not a good idea to make your TTouch appointment and your acupuncture appointment 2 hours apart or the same day or even a day apart. I like to say at least 3 days between them. I don't know how many of you or people listening, you know, have body work, but it's a lot for your body to process, and it's a lot for our dogs' bodies to process. And so I think it's really important to spread out that work and not try and put, more is not always better. Less is more often. Less is more. It really is true. And so really spreading those out and letting the body process any form of treatment they're going to have before you go to something else is important.
Kind of emotional contagion that happens when two stimuli happen in sequence, okay? So two sights, sounds, smells, touches, tastes, two environmental events the dog can perceive, two stimuli, right? So the kind of cliche one, we all know it, we yawn, we're like, yeah, Pavlov, yawn. Pavlov conditioned dogs to feel happy when they heard a bell, which had been followed many times by food. The part of that sentence I want you to really notice is he conditioned dogs to feel happy, right? He created an emotional response to a novel stimuli, which is a bell. I don't care about the bell right here. I care that you understand that over 100 years ago when Pavlov discovered this thing that really upset him, right? This was a flaw in his research as a physiologist. This is not a smart scientist who goes, I'm going to study conditioned emotions. It's a scientist who's angry because his physiology research is going to pot because the dogs in his laboratory are drooling too soon, right? The dogs are drooling in his laboratory when the assistants walk in the room and the equipment isn't hooked up yet, dang it. Okay, so but Pavlov's got the brilliance to be able to ditch the research he'd done all those years and won a Nobel Prize in. Nobel Prize winning physiologist ditches that research to say, hey, that flaw in my research is pretty interesting. Let's take a look at that, right? This thing we take so for granted now, conditioned emotions, right?
So the benefits of movement, we do a lot of movement in TTouch. And movement increases serotonin. It's, as Kathy said earlier, it's nice to just move your body. I think movement is medicine. I grew up dancing. I love movement. It's hard for me to walk anywhere without watching how everybody moves. It doesn't matter what kind of animal they are, human or dog or cat. I just watch movement. It improves confidence. It improves focus. If you're moving through a particular course like we do in TTouch, we set up labyrinths. If you have to walk a few steps and stop, and then make a turn around something and walk a few steps and stop, and then make a turn around something, it requires focus. Sometimes that slow movement is much more difficult for dogs to do. So sometimes, not counting senior dogs, but some senior dogs, sometimes dogs come to see me that they never slow down. They're just very, very out of body, very, very anxious, and asking them to move slowly is very challenging for them, but when they do it, it's a beautiful thing. It slows the nervous system. It really is nice to watch a dog slow down and move very, very quietly and slowly through a movement course.
So first off, let's do this kind of briefer session on keeping dogs eating. And this may only be my struggle with Effie, but I'm thinking it's kind of a common problem for many older dogs in that just keeping them eating enough healthful nutrition, right? So consistent healthful nutrition fades for many older dogs. And to me, animals that were finicky eaters throughout their lives are particularly at risk. I mentioned this yesterday in a kind of dramatic way, but it's very close to the truth that finicky eaters in zoos, zoo animals that are finicky eaters, don't tend to survive because we are missing a very crucial barometer of their health. So having been a zookeeper before I was a dog trainer and a marine mammal trainer, right? So you want to know the first symptom that your dolphin or whale might be ill, and it's often that they stop eating, right? So if you've got an animal that sort of snubs their food routinely and gets fussy about what kind of food, you have a harder decision to make about whether it's an indicator of health. So I'm coming into dog training saying, in my rest of my career, I'm pretty used to doing everything I can as a trainer to maintain robust eating, almost as a trained behavior, almost like that's a trick. I want to maintain the way we maintain any behavior, with reinforcement, with wise reinforcement. So this little section I'm going to be talking about eating being an operant behavior you have some control over maintaining.